ESG has exploded into compliance and business consciousness. Join Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, on the ESG Report and learn about sustainability risks, opportunities, and issues that business leaders and compliance professionals need to know about regarding ESG.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, back for another episode. And today I have with me Eli Sutton. Eli is coming to us from Tel Aviv. So, Eli, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Eli, could you tell us a little bit about your professional background?
Sure. So to date, I have about 20 years experience in sales and about 15 years in operations leader. In that time, I've been involved in industries like real estate, e-commerce, but the bulk of my career has been in the tech space. I've been involved with Teramind even before it had a name, so going nearly on 10 years with Teramind.
What's your current role with Teramind?
So I'm transitioning from VP of Operations to VP of Partner Operations. So we recently released our new partner program and just trying to get that up to speed so we can onboard new partners.
Before we get to that new role, why don't you tell us a little bit about Teramind and how it's evolved during your time with the organization?
So as mentioned, I've been with Teramind since the very beginning. So Teramind, in short, provides employee monitoring solutions to organizations who require some level of managerial oversight. We have solutions that can assist with the optimization of workforce activity, as well as the mitigation of insider threat. In layman's terms, we can assist organizations in being more profitable by maximizing their workforce and limiting the probability of, say, data breaches or security threat that could potentially arise from within the organization. We provide those solutions or that security from the inside out. We also have the solution itself comes as a SaaS model, a subscription as a service, and we have flexible deployment options like cloud, on-premise, or private cloud. So it can fit any organization's unique requirements. Now, the Teramind solution is agent-based, so you deploy the agent on the endpoint you want to monitor, whether it be a desktop, laptop, Windows server, terminal server, and from there the agent can report back on user activity. So I would say prior to the pandemic, as far as history goes of the solution, I would say about 70 to 80% of our came to us for the security side of the solution, whereas that kind of flipped on its tail after the pandemic. So most people who reach out to us, I would say roughly 60%, are reaching out to us on the productivity side of things. It's not to say that we've lost ground on security, just productivity, essentially the need for productivity solutions essentially exploded during the pandemic.
So Eli, in the United States, the industries which typically have a legal requirement for that type of oversight are what we call regulated industries, meaning banks, financial institutions, some hedge funds, insurance companies. I see the greater applicability in non-regulated industries, meaning every other commercial enterprise. Is that sort of breakdown of industries or businesses, is that with the Teramind customer base, or is it something different?
So initially, when we rolled out the Teramind solution, we thought, as you did, that it would be for more professional style offices and businesses where the type of monitoring or the requirement for monitoring came from some compliance, compulsory regulation. Now, what we found was that any industry that had users who are working out of an endpoint found benefit from the Teramind solution. So it doesn't matter if they were in banking, healthcare, retail, any organization that had a user that would work out of a laptop, a desktop, a terminal server can derive benefit from the Teramind solution.
Today, that's almost everybody who doesn't push a broom. Exactly. So you've got a pretty wide customer base. Now, I was also intrigued by your description of really the Teramind journey from pre-pandemic with people looking at data security to post-pandemic, where you're really looking more at optimization of business process or business operations, leading to greater efficiencies. I find that journey, I come of anti-corruption compliance, and that's the journey of anti-corruption compliance. It was a legal requirement that companies had to have, and then they discovered if we start managing our third parties and managing our sales from a corruption perspective, it actually makes us more efficient. Is that type of argument, or not argument, but selling point now for Teramind that, guys, we can provide you some basis of meeting regulatory oversight or requirement, but the real key and the real market differentiator is we can help make your business processes more efficient, leading to greater ROI?
Yes, of course. So if you look at the type of solutions that are out there for, say, for compliance, for security, to mitigate data breaches, many of them are or provide those solutions in a very aggressive manner. Now, what I mean by that is you have a solution for data loss, but most of the time what it's doing is flagging activities that traditionally are deemed appropriate, but the solution itself is just trying to mitigate as much as possible. And what it's really doing is it's hindering the user's ability to commit tasks which, once again, are deemed appropriate. So you'll have situations where a user is trying to commit a task, they have a new solution, a new DLP solution in place, blocks him from accessing a file or sharing a file that he normally should have the ability to. Now he's got to go to run to IT, explain the situation. IT's got to review it. By the time, depending on what they have on their plate, by the time they get to actually allowing that action to be committed going forward, an hour or two can go by. And that can happen multiple times for the same user a day. So you have a user who's trying his best to be as productive as possible, but at the same time, the infrastructure for security is essentially keeping him at his desk idle for 4 hours a day. A solution that, once again, is not aggressive but does the job as it's supposed to, so something that's a little bit more customizable, a little bit more user-friendly, can both provide that compliance, provide that security, and keep users productive.
You know, that was a brilliant description of an average day for a compliance officer. Hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. And that's no one's fault because IT has a lot going on. My wife's in IT and I see what she does on a daily basis. And of course, every time you have an emergency, you have to drop everything and get that. And then probably you're going to go in the emergency queue because there's several going on if you're a multinational corporation. And that really your answer really leads to the next question I wanted to ask you, which is how does Teramind's improving customer due diligence, how can you do that with a business process optimization tool or solution that you guys provide?
With respect to due diligence, depending on its need, it can take a great deal of man hours. In a world where time is money, the more time it takes, the more money is spent. Now, if that time is utilized to its maximum, you can save a great deal of time and a great deal on billable hours. In order to save time, you need to fully understand the process first and then have a tool like Teramind to assist in its monitoring and measuring that process. Now, once you have the know-how and the necessary tools, a process like due diligence can be effectively executed in the most efficient manner. So it's all about proper workflows, effective allocation of resources, controlling layoffs by utilizing your team to the maximum, all of which will drive productivity through the...
I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and about half of them say something along the lines of the following: if it's not going to make me money, I don't want to do it. You guys have a phrase called operationally sustainable. And so I wanted to ask, is operationally sustainable help a company determine overall profitability of an operation so that they can continue to do that operation to either improve it or just go with it? Or is operationally sustainable mean something else from the Teramind perspective?
So operationally sustainable is a very tricky topic. You know what most companies do when they find themselves outside of sustainable walls?
Give up?
Mass layoffs.
It's given up?
Yeah. This kind of goes back to some of the points discussed with the due diligence process. So for a company to be operationally sustainable, it must have strong foundations. Think of a company as something like a massive ship that's going across the Atlantic. Now, what does that ship need to make that journey a success? It needs a strong captain and officers team to man the vessel. It needs a navigational crew to get that vessel across to its destination safely and in optimal time. It needs an engineering crew to make sure that the vessel operates without malfunction. It needs things like a cook to make sure that the crew is properly fed. It needs a crew to run maintenance and do laundry. So all of these people are necessary, and for the ship to make its journey safely and in optimal time, all crew members and processes must be operating at the highest level. So you put in 100% of the effort and you'll make it across in record time. If you put 50% of that effort, the ship is delayed by weeks. You know, that delay has operational costs, penalties, and whatever other costs associated with not making it in the agreed amount of time. Now, the same goes for a company. The company must operate at its highest levels to be operationally sustainable. That starts from the bottom up, whether it's the guy who's running the mail cart, the CEO making multi-million-dollar decisions. Each person has responsibility, and if not executed properly, they have repercussions. Strong work ethic, a proven process to each task, following through with the proven process, a team member who monitors that proven process and make sure that it's being followed, and a team to overall review and optimize that proven process over time. So where Teramind comes into the picture is providing a means to monitor and measure these processes on a mass scale. And if you do all of these properly, you can grow and that's essentially your operational sustainability. So the fact that you have a proven process in place for continued, in my opinion, is operational sustainability.
So let me get back to the compliance component of Teramind, because many of our listeners are going to start learning about Teramind from the compliance perspective, then move to many of the operational issues that you've just articulated. But I'm going to go to your website because you have a great phrase, intelligent compliance management. Now, for non-compliance professionals, they rarely put intelligent and compliance together in the same sentence, but you guys did in your service and product offering. So could you describe what that is for us?
So the need for compliance or requirements for compliance varies depending on industry. Compliance for some industries is simply session recording or the ability to go back in time, review flagged events with the end goal of understanding how they got there and how they can prevent it from happening in the future. So no real boundaries are created, just a looking glass to learn and adapt. For other industries, it's a layer of security to protect customer data. Think of things like PII, so something like a social security number, FI, banking information, PHI, health records, PCI, payment data in relation to credit cards. So here you're looking at a tool that can not only flag the potential for mishandling of this type of sensitive data, but also prevent it in real time. So if a user tries to share data that falls into that criteria in a way that's deemed inappropriate or unsafe, Teramind can both alert and block the execution of that act in real time. And for other industries, it can be data management. So why get to the point where this data can get leaked from mishandling? Block access to users or departments where it's not relevant to their daily tasks. So the ability to not only monitor, but also have a solution that can act like a watchdog and protect your company and customer data at any hour of the day without exception. And all of this, of course, is customizable. So you have to understand that it's not just about flagging every action that a user can possibly commit, which of course can hinder their ability to complete their daily tasks. You essentially tell Teramind what you want it to look out for and how it should respond, and we can do that via state-of-the-art policy enforcement.
So when you sit down with a customer, or perhaps even a potential customer, who are you talking to? Are you talking to a chief compliance officer? Are you talking to a CISO? Are you talking to a CTO, or perhaps CEO or a board member? Who are you having these conversations with, both on the compliance perspective and the business optimization angle?
So the initial conversation tends to go through a product manager, or a project manager. So somebody who has been tasked to go out and find a solution that checks the boxes that fall under that requirement. So that's the initial call, just to make sure that the solution can do what you need it to do. The second call typically is with the CTO. So once it gets to the point where that project manager has done his due diligence, the product looks like it makes sense, checks all the boxes, you bring the CISO or the IT guy in place, and he essentially reviews it in depth. And then from there, typically you'll have a third call with the decision maker, so somebody above the CISO, somebody above the IT manager who can sign off on the product, and that's essentially who we talk to. So typically starts off as a project manager, then somebody a little bit more technical, and then somebody who essentially signs off on that check.
Are the conversations, you said that they might start around, I don't want to presuppose, do they start around more providing the regulatory oversight or oversight required by regulations and then move to more of your business product optimization strategies? Or is it vice versa, or really just company by company approach?
Company by company really depends on what they need, what the requirements are. So you have some companies who will typically come to us and tell us that after the pandemic, the majority of our employees are working remotely. We really need a tool in place to provide managerial oversight, understand what they're doing with their time while they're working remotely, and nothing in the sense of looking for a solution on the security side of things. You have other companies who are primarily only interested in security, so they want to make sure that, for example, the same set of employees who are working remotely are doing so in a safe environment. When you're working out of a traditional office environment, you have controls that have been put in place and have been in place for many years. Now you're jumping into this remote environment, many of which people are working out of desktops or laptops that they personally own that have no level of security in comparison to something like the type of security they would have in an office environment. And they want to make sure that they can essentially bring back that security in the remote environment. So utilizing a tool like Teramind to bring all those controls in place. It really depends on what the requirements are, and that's what drives the conversation. And of course, we have different packages depending on their needs. So if it's simply about just productivity, we have an entry-level starter option. If it's a blend of security and productivity, we have what is known as the UAM option. And if it's more about stringent security requirements, we have the all-inclusive pack, which is branded as DLP.
What I see, this podcast is called Innovation and Compliance. And although the word compliance is in the title, it's really about innovation. And that's why I was so intrigued about you and your company, because I saw this extraordinarily innovative. And compliance professionals, frankly, don't often think about productivity issues. But it strikes me that your solution is multifaceted enough that a compliance professional could bring it to a business optimization officer or whatever that process might be, VP of Ops even, and say, look, if we can fund this jointly, we're going to get a lot more uses out of it than customer due diligence. So how could you educate lawyer-trained compliance professional to understand the Teramind solution really cuts across all silos and several silos in an organization and can be of great benefit beyond simply ticking those regulatory boxes?
So it, once again, really depends on what they have their radar on. So many organizations prior to the pandemic, when we used to pitch a solution like Teramind, so of course we used to show them all facets of the product. You can not only make your business profitable, but it can also secure your businesses and essentially prevent financial loss from, say, something like a data breach. And many people prior to the pandemic looked at a solution that offers productivity monitoring as more of a luxury, not necessarily something that they needed. Only after the pandemic started did everybody's eyes open up and understand that there is great value in a solution that provides productivity monitoring. So again, prior to the pandemic, I don't think most organizations even that a solution like Teramind existed for productivity monitoring. Many of the people that landed on us, even some of the Fortune 500 companies, had no idea that a solution like Teramind existed. They knew that employee monitoring solutions were out there on the security side of the spectrum, but on the productivity side of the spectrum, it was something completely new to them, and they just essentially jumped in. They had no.
In post-pandemic, many companies have, I don't want to say pivoted, but in addition to their concerns about data.
This is Tom Fox again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the ESG Report. The ESG Report is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.